not too resonant. We'll do that once more. A little clanky. That sounded much better when I practiced it. Good morning, and welcome to Mainline. You can tell it's my very first time. So let's do that once more, too. Good morning.
Good morning.
And welcome to Mainline Unitarian Church. I'm Lloyd Cole, a member of our Board of Trustees. MLUC is a special community. There's always a lot going on here, and in a moment we'll talk about how to keep track of things. But for now, a special welcome to those joining us online, to those who are visiting today, and also to those who may still feel a bit new here. Please join us after the service for refreshments across the hall and for conversation throughout this floor. So, to see what is going on, please consult the events list on the back of your order of service. Visit our website at mluc.org or subscribe to our weekly email newsletter, Happenings. Today's worship will be led by Dawn Star Sarahs-Borchelt, our Director of Lifespan Faith Development, with worship associate Maureen McCarthy, and music by our music director, David Brown, Jodie Brown on piano, and featuring Liz and Carl Bligan on vocals and guitar. Thanks as always to our terrific tech and media team, and to the greeters and ushers. Now, please silence your electronic devices and join me in reaffirming our mission statement. Together, we transform lives through love, service, and our welcoming faith.
Good morning. Last time we were here, he was on crutches, but he is not healed, but much better and can get off the crutches, so.
Pro tip, don't break your leg while running down a mountain. The morning hits me up early. I follow my thoughts down the road. I take what I find. I keep my pockets lined, looking for gifts from the crows. They follow me all through the branches. They call out the signs of warning. They gather and off they go. They follow me all through the branches. They call out the signs of warning. They gather and off they go. But I don't wanna be all alone, all alone. All alone, all alone. All alone, all alone. All alone, all alone. Shining on the way home, I found a gift from the crows. There's a candle set on the table. There's an orange burning low in the sky. There's a fragile peace washing over me, but never our pace is a night. And we're telling the tales of our longings, and we're piercing the veil with the stars that we scored from memory. And we're telling the tales of our longings, and we're piercing the veil with the stars that we scored from memory. don't wanna be all alone, all alone. All alone, all alone. All alone, all alone. All alone, all alone. Shining on the way home, I found these gifts from the crows. I keep my pockets lined, shining for me all the way home. All of these gifts from the crows.
Our chalice lighting today is adapted from Rest is Resistance by Tricia Hersey. Resting our bodies and minds is a form of reverence. When we honor our bodies via rest, we are connecting to the deepest parts of ourselves. We are freedom making. What stories are we holding deep inside that are untold and uncovered because we are too exhausted? This rest work is holding space for our memories, our micro-histories, and all the things that make us human. We light this chalice in honor of seasons of rest and rejuvenation. Here is our candle set upon the table, a reminder of peace. Please rise in body or spirit to join in singing our opening song, Loosen by Ailey Halpert.
Loosen, loosen, baby, you don't have to carry the weight of the world in your muscles and bones. Let go, let go, let go. Loosen, loosen, baby, you don't have to carry the weight of the world in your muscles and bones. Let go, let go, let go. Holy breath and holy name, will you ease this pain? Holy breath and holy name, will you ease this pain? Listen, listen, baby, you don't have to carry the weight of the world in your muscles and bones. Let go, let go, let go. Loosen, loosen, baby,
and
you don't have to carry the weight of the world in your muscles and bones. Let go, let go, let go.
Listen, loosen, baby, you don't have to carry the weight of the world in your muscles and bones. Let go, let go, let go. Let go, let go, let go. Let go, let go, let go.
I would like to invite anybody who would like to come forward for the Time for Ages today, because I have some things that I'm going to show you. So if you would like to see and touch the things, you are welcome to come up here with me. So you may have noticed, or you may not have noticed, that I wasn't here from April. You can come over, come closer. I wasn't here from April through the end of June. You guys can sit down if you want. You don't have to stand up. So do you know why that was? I was on sabbatical. So that's a word, and everybody's like, what? So does anybody know what sabbatical means? What it is? Okay. So it's kind of like a vacation, but it's not. The word sabbatical comes from the same root as the word Sabbath, which means a day of rest. And so a sabbatical is a longer period of rest. And mine was 3 months. So it meant I didn't come to work. I didn't do any work for church for 3 months. So there are different kinds of rest. And we have some cute capybaras to show us the different kinds of rest. And I got some of all of these kinds of rest. You can see it up there, Luna. Yeah. I will say I'm really not very good at the don't do anything kinds of rest. So I did a bunch of things. And I'm going to tell you about some of them. So I read a lot. I actually always read a lot, but I had more time on my sabbatical to sort of sink into what I was reading. And these are all pretty much grown-up books, although there might be a picture book or two in there. So I wouldn't necessarily recommend any of them to you guys at this moment, but some of the rest of you might enjoy some of them, and if you want to ask me about them, I'm happy to tell you what I think you would enjoy, or what I would recommend. So reading for me is mental rest. So my daughter asked me to make leg warmers, because she's a dancer. Oh, these are upside down. So she asked me to make her leg warmers. You guys can see what they feel like. They're wool. And then also, we decided I would make a sweater. And the thing about this is that I've been knitting since I was 8 years old. And I've knit scarves, and I've knit, you know, socks and mittens and hats and these leg warmers. What?
Either me or mommy. It could be daddy. We have a clothing line for style.
Yeah, there's a lot of things that are knit. However, I've never knit a sweater before, ever. And obviously it's not done. It needs another sleeve. But I think it's turning out okay. I think my sweater's turning out okay. Yeah. And then I also, one of my art forms is quilting. And I've had a quilt in my head for close to 20 years of 4 seasons of a pattern that's called Pine Trees. And I've never had time to do it. So on sabbatical, I went to a fabric store in Lancaster, and I bought fabric, and I started with winter. And I cut out all the winter pieces, and I put them together. And you can see over here I made a mistake, so I patched it. It's a good thing about quilts is you can adjust. And then I also cut out spring, but I haven't finished sewing them together. So here's the spring pieces. You can look at them if you like and see what the colors are going to be like in spring. Yeah, I have little Easter eggs in the quilt. Each of my kids has a name that is a real thing. And so my spring baby, I have 4 kids and they were born in 4 seasons. So my spring baby's name is Robin, so I have Robin in spring. And there's a wolf up here. Anyway, and then I haven't done anything with summer or fall yet, so I've still got all of these fabrics ready to cut out. Yes, Luna?
Is any of the names Autumn?
No, none of their names are Autumn. I did have a cousin named Autumn when I was growing up, though. I haven't been in touch with her for a long time because she was a step cousin who then we kind of lost touch. But anyway, there we go. So that was a form of creative rest for me. And then one way that I am able to let my body rest, other than reading, which is kind of a sitting down kind of activity, is doing something that I can do sitting down. And so one of the things that I did is some work. That is not the right slide. There we go. We're getting to that one. Some work on my family tree. And so this is the state of my family tree right now. I know most of our ancestors back about 6 or 7 generations, which gets you back to about 1800. And it's harder to go further back than that because of the way the census was done. They stopped recording, or they only started recording everybody's names in about 1850. And before that, it's very hard to figure out connections and correct names and all of that. Although I do have some branches that go back a lot further than this, because people were very interested in colonists in New England and their ancestry. So I have one branch that goes back to 1208, I think. But that's one branch out of, like, at that point you've got 6,000 ancestors. So, but the reason I like genealogy is that I really like history, and I really like the kind of history that's about real people doing ordinary things. And you can't really get much more personal than your personal history. So that's what I find fascinating about this, knowing where I came from. And there are things that I found out that I'm proud of, and there are things that I found out that I'm very not proud of, and there are things that made me sad, and there are things that made me laugh. I'll tell you one of the funny ones. My name is Dawn Starr, and I am named for my great-grandmother, whose name was Starr. But in a different branch of my family tree, I have a great-great-great something uncle whose name was Star-Spangled Banner Osborne. And I'm not named after him because I don't think anyone in my family knew that he existed before I started doing genealogy. He apparently went by Bun later in life. I don't know why you wouldn't want to be going around being called Star-Spangled Banner Osborne, but he didn't like that idea.
Maybe it was too long.
Yeah, it was probably too long, yeah, and a little awkward. So that is what I did on my sabbatical, and I'm glad to be back. And children and youth may go to their classes and their teachers, and Tina will help you figure out where you're going because I'm also preaching the sermon, so I'm staying in here. Have a good time.
Each month, we donate half of our offering to a worthy organization in need. The recipient of MLUC's July offering outreach is the Family Promise of Montgomery County, a nonprofit organization that has been serving vulnerable families in Montgomery County and the Main Line who are experiencing poverty, homelessness, and hunger for more than 40 years. We have a brief video to tell us more about the work that Family Promise does.
Family Promise MontCo PA has made a commitment to addressing homelessness and hunger in Montgomery County, and we do everything we can every day to honor that commitment. Sometimes that means sitting at a desk and meeting with families. Sometimes that means delivering food, and sometimes that means taking a stand, literally. This May, the FP MontCo team went to Harrisburg and joined the collaborative advocacy network of the Bucksmont Collaborative and dozens of other local organizations to advocate for affordable housing policies and access to behavioral health care systems. But what does that mean? Well, did you know that 22% of households in Montgomery County and 27% of households in Bucks County are living above the federal poverty line, but below the cost of living in their respective counties? That means that although they're working, they are frequently making choices about whether to spend money on rent or mortgage or things like food, medicine, car repairs, and childcare. The lack of affordable housing has reached a crisis point in Bucks and Montgomery counties, and we need to take action to prevent the crisis from worsening. We're sharing about 3 housing priorities today. The first is raising the FAIR funding cap. FAIR is the Pennsylvania Housing Affordability and Rehabilitation Enhancement Fund. FAIR delivers tens of millions of dollars each year to communities in every county to expand low-income housing, prevent homelessness, remediate blight, and promote home ownership. But the current funding cap is $40 million. Our goal is to increase the program's cap to $100 million over the next 3 years. The second housing priority is supporting funding in the Department of Human Services budget for eviction prevention. The state average of evictions is 7.1%, but both Montgomery and Bucks counties are in the top tier of eviction filing rates in this state, sitting at 8.79% and 9.84%. The third housing priority is supporting zoning reform. Our ability to address the housing affordability crisis is impacted by the overly restrictive and bureaucratic zoning laws across the counties. To put it simply, building and preparing affordable housing is outlawed where it's needed most. But housing isn't the only thing we're advocating for today. The second is behavioral health access policies. The need for behavioral health services is growing while funding falls behind. Nearly 34% of Pennsylvanians have a mental illness or substance use disorder. In 2012, base funding for counties was cut by 10%, and it has not been restored since, with only a 3% increase in 2023. We're asking for an increase in funding that focuses on prevention, early intervention, and coordination between systems. Second, we need to stabilize, strengthen, and expand the behavioral health workforce to right-size our staffing response to growing behavioral health needs. We're also standing up for mental health parity. There is inequity in reimbursement rates between primary care physicians and behavioral health care professionals. This creates a barrier to finding and receiving appropriate mental health care. And in this last point, you'll realize that everything is connected. If we want to attract and retain a strong behavioral health workforce, they need to be able to afford to live here. Housing is foundational to the health and wellness of individuals and communities. For so many in our region, housing is just not attainable. And that's why we're here. We won't sit and watch. We are active advocates, and we want to fight for our families because we hope that you will join us as we continue to address homelessness and hunger, one family at a time.
The vision of Family Promise is that of a community where neighbors come together to ensure every family has a home, enough nutritious food, and the chance to find a better future. If you'd like to make a cashless donation, please follow the instructions on the screen or in the order of service. The offering will now be gratefully received. Would the ushers please come forward?
I see you found a box of my things, infantry's tanks and smoldering airplane wings. These old pictures are cool, tell me some stories. Was it like the old war movies? Sit down, son, let me fill you in. Where to begin? Let's start with the end. This black and white photo don't capture the skin. From the flash of a gun to a soldier who's done. Trust me, grandson, the war was in color. From shipyard to sea, from factory to sky, from a rivet to rifle, from boot camp to battle cry. I wore the mask up high on a daylight run that held my face in his clammy hand. Crawled over coconut logs and corpses in the coral sand. Where to begin? Let's start with the end. This black and white photo don't capture the skin. From the shock of a shell to the memory of smell. If red is for hell, the war was in color. I held the canvas bag over the railing, the dead released with the ship still sailing out of our hands and into the swallowing sea. I felt the crossfire stitching up soldiers into a blanket of dead, and as the night grows colder, in a window back home, a blue star is traded for gold. Where to begin? Let's start with the end. It's black and white photo, don't capture the skin. When metal is churned and bodies are burned, victory earned, the war was in color. Now I lay in my grave at age 21, long before you were born, before I bore a son. What good did it do? Well, hopefully for you, a world without war, a life full of color. Where to begin? Let's start with the end. This black and white photo never captured my skin. Once it was torn from an enemy thorn, straight through the core. The war was in color. Where to begin? Let's start with the end. This black and white photo never captured my skin. From the flash of a gun to a soldier who's done. Trust me, grandson, the war was in color. Trust me, grandson, the war was in color.
It is our custom at MLUC to share our personal joys and sorrows, expecting to be heard, accepted, and supported. Candles of Community is our ritual of personal sharing and support. After each candle is lit, please join me in saying, "We hold you in our hearts." Ron Rose asks for your positive thoughts for his brother David, who lives in Seattle and is scheduled for back surgery on Monday. David has a tumor on his spine which has dislocated one of his vertebrae, so this is a very serious surgery. For Ron and David, we hold you in our hearts. Marilee's great niece had a baby last week. Margaret and her wife Jess welcome Jonas Harvey Lane. For Marilee, Margaret, Jess, and Jonas, we hold you in our hearts. Lastly, we light a candle for all those unspoken thoughts and concerns held in our hearts that may be too deep for words. We hold you in our hearts. Today's reading is The World Keeps Ending and the World Goes On by Franny Choi. Before the apocalypse, there was the apocalypse of boats, boats of prisoners, boats cracking under sky iron, boats making corpses bloom like algae on the shore. Before the apocalypse, there was the apocalypse of the bombed mosque. There was the apocalypse of the taxi driver warped by flame. There was the apocalypse of the leaving and the having left, of my mother unsticking herself from her mother's grave as the plane barreled down the runway. Before the apocalypse, there was the apocalypse of planes. There was the apocalypse of pipelines legislating their way through sacred water, and the apocalypse of the dogs. Before which was the apocalypse of the dogs and the hoses. Before which, the apocalypse of dogs and slave catchers whose faces glowed by lantern light. Before the apocalypse of bees, the apocalypse of buses, border fence apocalypses, coat hanger apocalypse, Apocalypse in the textbook's selective silence. There was the apocalypse of the settlement and the soda machine. The apocalypse of the settlement and the jars of scalps. There was the bedlam of the cannery, the radioactive rain, the chairless martyr demanding a name. I was born from an apocalypse and have come to tell you what I know, which is that the apocalypse began when Columbus praised God and lowered his anchor. It began when a continent was drawn into cutlets. It began when Kublai Khan told MontCo, begin at the beginning. By the time the apocalypse began, the world had already ended. It ended every day for a century or two. It ended, and another ending world spun in its place. It ended, and we woke up and ordered Greek coffees, drew the hot liquid through our teeth as everywhere the apocalypse rumbled. The apocalypse remembered our dear, beloved apocalypse. It drifted slowly from the trees all around us, so loud we stopped hearing it.
I imagine you may be wondering why I'm talking about apocalypse and what it has to do with my sabbatical. I promise we will get there. And we will get there mostly through stories because I am much more of a storyteller than a preacher. In the words of the song, "Where to Begin? Let's start at the end." And in the words of our reading, "The world keeps ending and the world goes on." So the first story is about words. In its Greek root, the word apocalypse means an event that shows you what was already there, truths that already existed and are now revealed. A catastrophe, in contrast, is a sudden change from one reality to another altogether. We commonly use both words to mean basically the same thing, disaster, or the end of the world. There are many ways in which the world as we know it ends all the time. A scary diagnosis, divorce, death, losing a job, even good things like having a baby or an exciting move. And there are ways the world as we know it may end more completely. Climate change, financial collapse, political revolution or devolution, war, nuclear war. Catastrophes are often something more limited in scope, affecting some specific group of people or area or set of ideas. An apocalypse affects everyone, everywhere, all at once. When a catastrophe happens, people and communities may or may not learn from that experience. It's possible after a catastrophe to go back to sort of how things were, although maybe not in the exact same place or the exact same way. Think of people rebuilding their homes on the bank of a river that just overflowed in a 100-year flood. Maybe they're rebuilding a little further back from the banks, but they haven't moved to a completely different place altogether. In an apocalypse, there's no going back. Think of ancient cities found far underwater along a coastline that shifted, perhaps all at once in a cataclysm, that's another great word, of an earthquake or a volcano, or maybe 1,000 or 2,000 years of slow, gradual change. After any end of the world, there will most likely still be a different world than before in existence, with at least some people living in it. There are many writers, scientists, philosophers, theologians, academic and popular, who've written and thought about the apocalypse and all of its synonyms. One I see a lot lately is collapse. I haven't read them all. So the ideas and questions and thoughts that I'm going to share today are not in any way a comprehensive review of the literature. They're just mine, with reference to a few authors I've had the time to read. So that brings me to my second story, COVID. In the first weeks of COVID in early 2020, I called up my dad, who is obviously older than I am and has lived through more things than I have. And I asked him if he thought that COVID was the biggest news story he'd ever lived through, or if there were other things, like maybe 9/11, that had been more important. He said yes, COVID was definitely the biggest because it was affecting everyone, everywhere on the planet, all at once. He didn't use these terms, but 9/11 was, as I've defined the term, a catastrophe. I would argue that COVID was part or the beginning of an apocalypse. There was no going back from COVID. Change was unavoidable. And each of us in this room or watching online, unless there are babies here, had our own experience of that apocalyptic shift and how our lives changed during the shutdown, the protests against racist policing, the elections, so forth and so on. Your experience and how you understand its meaning might be quite different from mine, and that's fine. I'm just sharing how it was and is for me. And how I came out of 2020 and 2021 was significantly, physiologically burnt out. I want to be clear that it's not the congregation's fault that I burned out. It's not my family's fault that I burned out. It's not really anybody's fault that it burned out. I burned out because I, under intense, unavoidable stressors, was not able to allow myself to rest. Not because you, individually or as a group, wouldn't let me rest. In fact, you told me to rest regularly. But by late 2022, it was clear to me that I had to rest or I would start dropping balls that I could not afford to drop. So I took an emergency 1-month sabbatical from my work with you in January of 2023. And on that sabbatical, I did literally nothing because I couldn't do anything. I couldn't craft, I couldn't make art, I didn't start any projects, I didn't read anything that required any mental effort at all. If I had, for example, read Rest is Resistance, which I did on this sabbatical, I would have recognized myself in these words from Tricia Hersey. When you are exhausted, you lack clarity and the ability to see deeply. Your intuition and imagination are stifled by a culture of overworking and disconnection. You must be open to go deep into those cracks, to examine and to understand. It may take years to fully crack open, and it will be a lifetime of practice, care, and creativity. It's your life, body, and community. Therefore, it is yours to hold, protect, love, and care for. One thing that I did grasp during that emergency sabbatical was that a big part of what I was struggling with was grief. We think of grief as happening to us when someone dies. But grief can also happen as a normal human, emotional, and spiritual response to any kind of loss. And for me, especially in my work here at church, COVID brought a lot of loss. I realized that I felt angry and sad way more often than made any sense based on what was happening in the moment when I was working at church alone or with you all after we came back to in-person worship and learning. Naming that feeling as grief helped me a lot. In one of the other books I read on this sabbatical, Holding Change, Adrienne Marie Brown says, as we seek to breathe a new world into being an effective change maker demands the right and power to feel our losses rather than escape them. We must give our grieving bodies what they need individually and collectively. So after that emergency sabbatical, I tried to give my grieving body and spirit what it needed while coming back fully into my work world here. I also took better care of myself in other physical, emotional, and spiritual ways. And I'm very happy to say that by the time I took this 2026 sabbatical from April through June, it wasn't an emergency sabbatical. This time I had the time and energy to do more, as I shared with you in the Time for All Ages, and to think more. Which brings me to my third story, Apocalypse. On a family reunion camping trip after that first sabbatical and before this one, my brother-in-law asked me something like, do you think it's possible for us to change enough things to stop climate change? Do you think it's possible for us to change enough things to stop climate change? And the answer that came out of my mouth was no. I was surprised by that. I wasn't expecting that no to come out of my mouth in response to that question, but it was a true no. I do not, in fact, believe that we, collectively humanity, can stop the changes we have set in motion on our planet or in our global political and economic systems. Or maybe we could, but I don't believe that we, humanity, will do so. We tend to try not to say that no out loud in our Unitarian Universalist spaces. It sounds so final. It sounds hopeless. I'm sure some of you disagree with me and believe that it is possible to reverse climate change and that humanity will in fact do that. And I respect that. But I'm talking today about what seems to be true to me. And either way, I want you to listen to me. That no is not hopeless. I thought about that conversation and that no a lot on this sabbatical. Audrey Marie Brown writes, "We must deal in reality. It is nearly impossible for people to build trust over time if they cannot name and face what is actually happening. If we don't fully understand where we have come from, what created us, and where we are, then we are building our future on quicksand. By building a shared analysis of what is real, you create more possibilities for the things the group can actually do." Thought about that conversation and that no, and I framed these thoughts with some very simple questions. I invite you to, as Brown says, build a shared analysis in response to these questions with me. I promise it does not end in despair. So, first question. If you knew that the world as you know it would end by whatever means in 5 minutes to 5 days, what would you do? I think that given 5 minutes, mostly a lot of us would freeze and do nothing at all because that's too short of a time to react and form a response. But given 5 days, I believe most people know what they would do. We would tell our loved ones how much we love them. We don't have to wait. We can tell people we love them every day, today, right now. Take a moment. Tell someone sitting next to you that you love them. Or close your eyes and take a deep breath and send a loving thought to someone who is important to you. I'm serious. You can take out your phone and text somebody if you want to. It won't upset me. This is hope, not despair. Next question. If you knew that the world as you know it would end by whatever means in 5 months, what would you do? In a way, this is what I did on my sabbatical. It wasn't that the world was going to end, but I had a specific amount of time available and I had to make choices about what to do in it. And I think many of us, if we knew we had 5 months left, would pour ourselves out into the people and things that we love. We might mend relationships or break out of ruts to seek new adventures with the time we had left. In fact, I've found that this can be a helpful thing to imagine at times when I feel stuck. This, whatever is difficult right now, doesn't have to be forever, because what if there isn't forever? What if there's just now? This is hope, not despair. Next question. If you knew that the world as you know it would end by whatever means in 5 years, what would you do? That's probably where you would have to make some harder decisions. In 5 years, you could try to maximize your personal chances of surviving whatever's coming, or your children or your grandchildren's chances. Some of us would be able to stockpile and prep quite a lot, while others of us might struggle to put anything aside because we are already struggling financially, physically, mentally, or spiritually. The most important preparation, I believe, would be building trust with our neighbors. What we have, they may need, and when we are in need, they may have something to give. This is hope, not despair. Final question. If you knew that the world as you know it would end by whatever means in 50 years, what would you do? If I knew that we had 50 years left before a complete apocalypse, I would try to work with others, with you, to change things, to make it so that as many people as possible would survive in the different world to come. And I believe that most of you in this room or watching online would also make that choice if you knew that it was available to you. In many ways, I see you looking for ways to make that choice. Asking this question, what would you do if you knew the world was going to end, is not a question of despair. It is a question of hope. Because I think it is very likely that the world as we know it will end in some way or another between 5 years to 50 years. Maybe it will be longer, maybe even 500 years. But the world as it currently operates is not, in my opinion, truly sustainable in the mid to long term. Tricia Hersey writes, Octavia Butler shares a powerful truth related to imagination. The very act, we have water. I didn't put it here. I don't know how it got here. But it's been here long enough to lose germs. The very act of trying to look ahead to discern possibilities is an act of hope. If I could repeat this over and over, like a call to prayer blasted on speakers throughout the land, stirring in my heart, whispering in ears, etched into our psyche, and tattooed gently in the palms of all who feel even a glimmer of hope, I would do so. Please repeat after me. The very act of trying. To look ahead to discern possibilities. Is an act of hope. We are trying to look ahead. We are trying to discern possibilities. The good thing about trying is that usually when you keep trying, you get better at whatever you are trying to do. The very act of trying to look ahead, to discern possibilities is an act of hope. I invite you to keep trying to figure out what we can do. When you feel more despair than hope, come together with others who are also trying, here or elsewhere, because that will build your capacity for hope. The very act of trying to look ahead to discern possibilities is an act of hope. I invite you to rise, or in body or spirit, to join me in singing our closing hymn, number 346, Come Sing a Song With Me, which is all about hope and finding it when that seems hard and doing it together.
Sing a song with me.
In the words of Tricia Hersey, we imagine by being in community. We imagine by receiving and offering radical care. We imagine by embracing and running towards our interconnectedness. Let us dream and move and share together. Let us ask questions of hope, and may we not despair. Please remain seated for the postlude.
Holiday quiet on these streets, except for some stubborn leaves that didn't fall with the fall, and now they clatter in vain. Holiday sky, midnight clear, wind is high, hard to steer. Old muffler rumbles like an old fighter plane, in search of some rest, in search of a break from a life of tests, where something's always at stake. Something's always so far. What about my broken car? What about my life so far? What about my dream? What about everything? What about aeroplanes and what about ships that drank the sea? What about the moon and stars? What about soldier battle scars and all the anger that they eat? Well, I am not in need. Get away and come with me. Come away with me and we'll see if I was right on that night, that our future was made before time takes each year like a knife, cuts it clear. And school, then work, and then life, that just sharpens the blade. I think about time for fun, I think about time for play, then I think about being done with no resume, with no one left to blame. What about fortune and fame? What about your love to obtain? What about the ring? What about everything? What about aeroplanes and what about ships that drank the sea? What about the moon and stars? What about soldier battle scars and all the anger that they eat? Well, I am not in need. Holiday quiet on these streets, except for some reason me. The hometown harbor lights bright, the sailboats clatter in vain. Holiday sky, midnight clear, wind is high on this pier. I find it hard to complain when compared with what about everything? What about aeroplanes and what about ships that drank the sea? What about the moon and stars? What about soldier battle scars and all the anger that they eat? What about aliens? What about you and me? And what about gold beneath the sea? What about when buildings fall? What about that midnight phone call, the one that wakes you from your peace? Well, I am not in